Welcome back to Tech Tip Tuesday for the Cleveland, Ohio Stake. This is Sister Christine Lurs, and I am the Stake social media specialist. And on these Tuesday visits, we are going to continue to review some of the technology tools that we have available to us through the church to make our church life a little bit easier. So today, we are actually going to go start delving into the Gospel Library app. There are so many resources here that it's actually going to take multiple weeks, but we're going to start today. I can see that I have it loaded on my iPad. You can actually download it and have it on an Android or an iOS device, but my version is going to show you on an iPad today. Androids might vary a little bit in what you see, but it should be very similar, and when I'm aware of the differences, I'll try to point those out to you. So we're going to go ahead and launch the app today. And as you can see when I launch it, there is a whole wealth of resources available for us in this app. Today we're going to just focus on being able to highlight scriptures and some of the tools like that when we're reading articles or lessons and the scriptures and those type of things. So we're going to focus on that. But what I want to remind everyone is when you log in, and we've talked about this in previous sessions, whenever you launch one of the church apps, I highly recommend that you actually log in with your LDS.org account so that they can communicate with each other. As a reminder, if you do not have an account, you just need to go to LDS.org on your web browser, and you will need your membership record number, and you will be able to create an account with that. You can get that information from your ward clerk if you do not know that off the top of your head. But once you actually have that LDS.org account set up, you can use that with, and I recommend that you use that with all of the apps as well as that online resource so that they all communicate with each other. So if I took notes here, it shows up online, it shows up on my phone. If I highlight a scripture, it shows up anywhere I'm logged into that app, and it's a really cool feature. So you would just go to settings over here in the left, and then it'll walk you through putting in, you can see here's your LDS account. I'm already logged in, but you can log into your account. Some of the other cool tools over here would be like to change your text size. So I could change the text size of things that I'm seeing. I'm getting a little bit older and I need it a little bit bigger. So I can set my preferences and then I could choose settings again, and it makes that screen go away for me. But I do recommend that any of the apps that the church has provided for us, that you log in with your LDS.org account so that they can communicate across devices. Okay, so just as an overview, we can see on the main screen, we've got a lot of tools for us. We've got our scriptures, teachings of the president. That would be like our lesson manual for priesthood and relief society. We've got lesson manuals here if you're a teacher, our church magazines, our hymnal, various videos, those type of things. So there's a lot of really cool tools here. And you just scroll to the bottom, you can also see there's a whole tip section that can help you out. One thing I will point out before we go into the scriptures is I do want to point out as you look at different items in the system, if I wanted to look at videos and those type of things, if I select that, I do want to point out that you'll see some things that are grayed out. So I've got some things in color because that's showing me there's more behind that level, or I actually have it downloaded. But let's say I wanted some Mormon messages and I wanted to be able to watch them on my device. I would need to click on that to actually download and have those Mormon messages available to me when I'm not online, when I'm not connected to Wi-Fi. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're getting ready to get on a plane or you're going to be in a long car ride and you don't have Wi-Fi, you want to go deeper and make sure that the things that you want to access, that you can actually have them on your device so you can access them. And that's really key, especially with, let's say, the magazines or the videos. So now if I click into Mormon messages, you can see that I have different messages here. And if I look at one of my favorites, A Shower of Heavenly Blessings, I can see that this video is going to come up and I could actually play that on my device. Let me click on that and play. As I see, it's kind of playing it and downloading it. Now, you can see that it's going to play here in a second, but right now as you see this going across the screen, that is buffering for me. And I can see that it's playing now. And we're going to go ahead and pause that. Now, you see a couple things that have come up. It's buffering because I have to be on the internet to access that. So as I see that video, I am visualizing it because I'm on the internet right now. However, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little down arrow. That allows you to actually download that video to your device so that you can actually play it when you are not on the internet. We'll go into the media library app that the church has just come out with as another resource for those kinds of things. But now I can see I actually have that on my device. And the huge benefit of that, again, is that if I'm not on a wireless network with my device, then I can still view that item even though I'm not connected. So that's just one thing I'd like to point out that's pretty important if you're trying to access some of these resources when you are not online. If I see this screen, and again, we'll come back to videos another time, but if I see this screen to go back, I can either in my bottom left-hand corner, click the back arrow, or I can always click at the top center of my screen, and that's going to show me how many layers deep I've gone inside of the app itself. And so I can actually just kind of come up here to the top and I can click on library, and it's going to take me back to the starting point. Okay, so we actually are going to go into our scriptures. So let's go ahead and click on our scriptures. Now, let's say I wanted to go into the New Testament. And we're going to go into Matthew, and our upcoming lesson is talking about prayer, and it references Matthew 7:7. So I want to go check that out. And I can see here it says, ask and it shall be given to you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. So there's some really cool features in the scriptures that are on your device. And as I see here, I've got a lot of blue text here. So what does that mean? That means I can actually click on that text and there's more information to be had. And what's going to happen is this drawer is going to open over to the right, and it's going to refer to the Joseph Smith translation here. Okay, it's going to refer to Isaiah, Helaman, so other references that I might have. I can also click in this top right, and you can see this is just all the related content. So in your scriptures, when you see those footnotes and those type of things, this related content is going to show up to the right. So I can see 7a. This is all the references that just showed up kind of expanded. This has them a little bit smaller. If I wanted to click on given, it's actually going to talk about the topical guide in Revelation, and I could choose to click there and it would launch me there. So this lets you gather more information. You still have that available on your device. To make this screen go away, I can either click the check up there, or I can take this line and kind of drag it to the right, and it gets me back to my full screen. Anytime I wanted to pull that back up in the upper right, that lets me open that drawer. And again, or I can close that drawer. Okay, so I can access that. If I wanted to bookmark this place in my scriptures, I could choose in the bottom right, I could choose to bookmark that place in my scriptures. One thing that people often miss is the two little pieces of paper down here in the bottom. That allows me to actually jump between areas in the scriptures. So if I wanted to stay in Matthew 7, plus I wanted to launch a new screen, and I wanted to actually go over into the lesson that I just referenced, so Gordon B. Hinckley, and I wanted to have my lessons up, how mighty a thing is prayer. So I have that up, and rather than having to go all the way back up to my library and going back to my scriptures, I can have multiple windows open at a time. So if I go back down and click that box, you can see that now I have my lesson open, and I also have Matthew 7, and I could just click on Matthew 7 and I could hop back over there. So that allows me to have multiple screens open at once inside of the Gospel Library app. So that's a really, really cool feature. And again, to do that, I come down to the grayed out boxes in the bottom right, and I would click the plus symbol, and that would take me where I wanted to go. So if I needed to go to an enzyme that I also wanted to refer to, let's say I'm teaching a lesson on these different things, I could hop back and forth, or if I wanted to go back to my lesson and then back here. So you can actually kind of play around with that. It's kind of a cool tool. But one key thing that a lot of people could really use and they don't know, they said, in our paper scriptures, we can highlight and put notes and those kinds of things. How do I do that in my electronic scriptures? And it's really, really easy. So you can actually come in with pretend my cursor is actually my finger, and you actually just click and hold. Okay, and you see some options come up. I can see these little blue dots, so I just actually take that and I drag it to what I want to access. So one of the options that comes up, and on my iPad, it's going to all come up right above. I believe on the Android that actually comes up at the top of your screen of your device. But there's a lot of options here. So speak, that allows the system to speak that scripture for you. That's a really cool tool sometimes, especially if you want it to read your scripture to you while you're studying it, or for youth. Not so cool when you're in church and you click that by accident. So you want to make sure while you're in church you have your device on silent, because otherwise she will start speaking during sacrament meeting or during your lesson in Sunday school, and it's a little embarrassing. So that's what the speak does. The second item allows me to, if I'm going to click on it here, that allows me to highlight. So right now, it's underlined it in pink, and I'll show you how you change that. I have mine set up, this little Rubik's Cube looking thing here. You can change the color. So right now it's showing underlined because it's chosen here in the center under the little arrow. But if I actually moved it over here, it would just change it to highlight. And I could choose to highlight it in a different color if I wish. So if I color coded my scriptures, I could certainly choose to do that. Okay, again, or I could choose to underline it. I'm going to highlight it. Now, if I click off of that, I go back to my scripture. It's highlighted. Now, let's say that I highlighted that and I really didn't want it highlighted. I would click back on that highlighter, and you can hit the trash button. And normally, it will take that particular highlight away. There you go. I didn't click it right. So if I did it by accident, I can actually take it away. I just have to go back through the steps. Now I'm going to highlight that again because I really actually do want that highlighted. But there's other things I can do. The next item is a pencil. So you know how you leave notes in the margins of your scriptures? You might write a little note to remember. Well, this gives you a lot more room and a lot more options. I actually can pull this up. I could title if I wanted to, and I could tap and edit notes. So I could actually put notes in here about the scripture and the things that I'm thinking about. I can format it. I can add it to my notebook, those kinds of things. So it lets me keep notes on that particular item as well. So I'm going to highlight it. Another option is to tag it, right? So if I want to click on the little tag here, it lets me tag it. So when I'm talking about what is this scripture about, so maybe this is about prayer. So I could actually start typing in the word prayer, and I don't have a tag that says prayer yet, shame on me. And I could type prayer and I could say save. And now if I were to search down in my search field and I wanted to type something about prayer, I'm going to show you this. If I typed in prayer, you're going to see that it comes up with different options for me to find prayer inside of the Gospel Library app. And it's going to find a whole boatload because there's a lot of things on prayer in this app. But it's going to find scriptures. It's going to go find conference talks. It's going to find lessons, family. And one of the items that's going to eventually come up if it gets through this is things that I may have tagged or things that I want to access. So there's a way to search in here as well. So if I wanted to search or find my tags, I certainly can do that. Again, I'm going to highlight just to, again, bring back up those options. All right, my finger dragged a little too quick there. So there's, again, another option. So I can do the same thing as this box down here if I wanted to click on those particular item and I wanted to duplicate it or things like that. I could also click, go back here. It's chosen my highlight for me and it popped back open that drawer. So let me try to highlight it again and get my Sometimes it's a little touchy. One of the cool things that most people miss is this out arrow. This is an open in. So anywhere on your mobile device you see that, that lets you take an action. That's an action button to open in or take it elsewhere. So if I wanted to take that scripture and, for example, if I wanted to message that, text message it to someone or mail it to them or tweet it out or put it on Facebook or something like that, something that I found in my Gospel Library app, whether it be a piece of a lesson, whether it be a piece of the scriptures, I can actually send that out. If you have a device that you can print from, things like that, you can actually do that. So I can actually grab that piece and I can send that out and have that accessible in another tool, or send it to myself as a reminder, or send it to someone else because I really like it. Another thing I can do is I can link this. And this is one thing that most people really are not aware of that's really cool. So if I were to come to this particular scripture and I click on the link button, it just goes away, right? But you can see at the top, it's saying find a selection to link to Matthew 7:7. So if I had, let's say, a talk or something else or somewhere else inside of the Gospel Library app that I wanted to link to this scripture, that one reminded me of another, or I thought that they went well together, I could do that. I'm actually going to just do it here on the same screen just for sakes and purposes of not going all over the system. But so I could choose the second thing I wanted to reference, and you see here that it says, hey, link this to Matthew 7:7. So if I wanted to link it, now every time I were to look at Matthew 7:7, it would give me this reference that it's linked to this particular alternative scripture. So that's a really cool feature, and you can see over here to the right, it's very faint, but I can see there's two links there and there's a tag. So if I actually wanted to know that I had those items in place, I can see that. And if I open my drawer, there's my tag for prayer. The three dots lets me add a note if I'm in that screen. I could actually find that link button, and let's see if I can click on it. So now I've clicked on my link, and it shows me that it links it to a different scripture. So I've clicked on the link below for 7:8, so it's showing me that it's linked to 7:7. If I click on the one up here by 7:7, you can see here it's linked to 7:8. So again, we probably wouldn't link them to something right next to each other, but certainly somewhere else in another talk, in the lesson manual, in the scriptures, we can do that. So again, anytime that you want to be able to do things similar to what you're doing in your scriptures, just click and hold a selection, and that will bring up the tools and the options for you to use. So that can really help you with your church life and make that a lot easier. I hope that you found that useful today. Join us again back here on another Tuesday where we will go a little bit deeper into the Gospel Library app and explore all of these great tools that are available for us.